if you haven't been to failure at 20 reps, 6 and 8 rep sets of heavy squats, yeah, it's hard, but I'm telling you, I'll take that shit all day to failure versus 18 to 20 reps. That is fucking death. That is horrible. You feel like you're going to pass out.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Think Big Bodybuilding Media. I'm Scott McNally. I'm here with coaches Skip Hill in the middle. We've got Andrew Berry back with us. Today, we got a bunch of listener questions. We're going to do like a Sunday, Easter Sunday training extravaganza. We have a topic of favorite squat technique and why. We're going to dig deep. We're going to talk a lot about squats. Plus, we have a bunch of listener questions. A lot of this stuff is going to be training focused. I do want to say thank you to our great sponsor, TrueNutrition.com. Check out their awesome supplements. I use a lot of their stuff. If you have any questions about them, ask me. Our code is ADVICES, ADVICES. We might be getting a new code. I don't know. We'll have to talk to Dante about that. And that's all I got to say until we actually get around to the topic. Oh, and one more note, we've got timestamps. So if you guys want to skip around, feel free. These guys have both been in the bodybuilding world for a long time, as have I. So I'm excited to get into this topic. Before I do, happy Easter, gentlemen. And Andrew, welcome back to the show, man. Good to have you.
Well, thanks for having me back on, guys. It's great to chat with you always.
Skip, I know you have you've got fancy dinner plans tonight, so we got to knock this thing out so you can put on your suit or whatever you put on for the fancy restaurants.
It's Ruth's Chris. I asked my wife if I could even go in shorts.
Yeah?
She's like, yeah, you probably could. These days, dress code isn't what it used to be, especially in South Florida. But anyway, I am looking forward to dinner because we don't usually go to dinner. So, or go to, a nice sit down. It's usually a burger joint or something like that, or a bar because they have to have alcoholic beverages for my wife, things like that.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, let's get this thing rolling. Squat technique. You always hear that in order to have a great physique, you have to have great legs. And you've always heard it said that in order to have great legs, you have to squat. Do you have to squat or not? That's a conversation we've had on another episode. But actually getting into the movement, out the gate, I want to know what your favorite squat technique is now. We're going to talk about what you grew up on. We're going to talk about possibly the benefits of different squat techniques, and we're going to come full circle with this thing. So I guess, Skip, you're our leader. You've been doing this the longest, I suppose. You've been, I know, coaching now for over 2 decades. You've worked with guys not only in bodybuilding and the NPC and IFBB, but also sports that would require leg strength for other purposes like the NFL. So take it away, man. What are you personally into now for a squat technique?
Personally, me, pendulum comes first, and I'd say a close second would be a good hack squat, but that's me. And my preference right now is to dig in more to my quads and less into my glutes and hips and that sort of thing. And that's not to, I'm not a huge fan of, and this is going to be a really good topic, by the way, but I'm not a huge fan of the cliche idea of, squats are king, you must squat to have big legs, things like that. That is not to say that squatting is not great. It's not to say that squatting does not build big legs. But I think that it's sometimes an individual thing where some people respond very, very well to back squats, barbell squats, whatever the hell you want to call them. And I only say that to differentiate between regular squatting and Smith squatting. I have not been able to free squat, unfortunately, for quite a while. Since my back problems, chronic lower back problems, it's just always there. It's always an issue. So for me to squat in the Smith machine, I have to be fair and say they are Smith squats. They are not. I'm not technically squatting. I'm squatting in the sense that I'm bending at my hips and my knees, but I consider squatting, barbell or free squat. So I want more of my focus in my own training to be more on my quads. I call it quad dominant type training. And when I can, I stay away from that. If I need something with my glutes, or if I want to dig in a little bit and balance out my quads with my hamstring work and glute work, then I'll do leg presses, things like that. I might even do lunges. I started doing lunges too. I picked up on those after the hip injury. But the topic is not lunges. So I'm bringing myself back to the topic. But that's where I am. I will say one more thing. I do think that if you overuse the free squat, I do think that it leads eventually down the road, especially for those people who are genetically predisposed to getting huge. I don't want to say they find it easy. Everybody works hard to get huge, but for those who are genetically predisposed to getting huge, I think that if you squat long enough and heavy enough, that it's really hard to not have wider glutes and wider hips, right along with bigger legs. And then you end up with quads that are, I call them adductor heavy. They just, you take Sean Ray's quads and you put them up against, that's
a lot of people.
Give me somebody. Yeah, a lot of it's just so many that it's hard to tell. But, and I think that's part of the reason. I think that there's been a shift, over the years to, I don't want to say the squats are even more important, because they were more important then too. But there's just a different look. There's a different look, and I think a lot of bodybuilders become adductor heavy. Now I'll leave it at that.
Andrew, I've been waiting for this. You know what, too? I got to tell you, by the way, we always get questions too, like, how do I bring out my outer sweep? How do I make my legs look like that guy? So that, and some of that stuff is genetic. Obviously, you can work to grow bigger legs no matter who you are. But I have to say, I think one of the first things I noticed, Andrew, when I met you and I saw your pictures, is your legs. You have really cool. It's not only do you have like awesome conditioning to them, which I think I love like really good condition, but you've got really cool shape to your legs too.
Yeah, it's very good shape. I agree.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite features on you. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, first, I really appreciate that. That's really nice. I wouldn't say I've done anything that much different than both you guys in terms of over the years, but I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to like well-developed legs. Though, is like you got to get them peeled. You got to show that detail. You got to actually have the cuts to show the sweep, if you know what I mean, to differentiate the different heads of the tissue so they actually do stand out. But getting back to what Skip was saying about squatting or not squatting, I think even looking at it not just from a leg training sense, but from a hard work sense, like there's a difference when you do a squat workout than there is from doing, say, leg extensions, leg curls, adductor, adductor machine. And I think there's a very different look to the leg if you've done some level of squatting over the course of your career. Not to say you have to squat 20 years into it, because we all know we're at that age where your back hurts, you can't get your arms up to the bar properly anymore. So I just think that, in terms of like learning how to train intensely, you got to go through some hard squat sessions or some hard leg sessions, including squats. You got to hit some hard sets of 8, and then you got to do those Widowmaker sets of 20 that they work your whole body. You know what I mean? Like you gain that mental toughness where the whole rest of the week is easy after that leg workout. Like how many times have you guys, let's say your leg day is on a Sunday, you go to bed Saturday night and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, like you start getting focused a couple hours before you go to bed.
Right.
Like there's that anxious feeling, and also that like I call it like anxiety mixed with like excitement, because you're like, I know what I did last week, and I've got to prove to myself that I can beat last week's numbers or intensity in some way or shape or form. And so you're just thinking about it. You fall asleep thinking about it. You wake up, you eat your first meal, you're preparing, you eat your pre-workout meal or whatever your schedule is. The whole day you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I do think in terms of intensity and mindset, if you're a squatter, you know what that's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You bring up a good point too about the rep ranges. One thing I can look back on, and I'm going to guess it was right around 05, 06, was I ended up changing things over to doing sets of for legs to failure in the 18 to 20 rep range. And I'm telling you, if everybody says, oh yeah, 20 reps are hard. And I'm not saying nobody trains to failure and I'm the balls out guy. What I'm saying is if you haven't been to failure at 20 reps, 6 and 8 rep sets of heavy squats, yeah, it's hard. But I'm telling you, I'll take that shit all day to failure versus 18 to 20 reps. That is fucking death. That is horrible. You feel like you're going to pass out. It's all you can do to keep your base solid at your base. You know, I call the hips your base or your foundation. It's a bitch. You're shaking. You want to psychologically shorten the reps. You want to be a little quicker and to force yourself and stay disciplined to keep that same rep tempo and that higher rep range. If anybody is struggling with their legs growing and they're doing heavy sets and they're going to failure and they can't figure it out, just shock the shit out of them and go to failure at 18 to 20 reps. Because I'm telling you, your legs will fucking just go crazy. They'll be sore as shit. You'll probably have to cut your volume in half because it's so brutal. But I just wanted to throw that out before I forgot about it, because that rep range, that's killer. That is fucking brutal.
Yeah. So Andrew,
to add to that too, also, I was going to say, to add to that, also consider the fear factor. Like what other exercises do you have something that could really potentially hurt you? So you're getting amped up to do that heavy set, whether it's 6 to 8 or whether it's that 20 rep set. I don't care what weight it is, you know, like, because if you're a 400 or 500 pound squatter, you're going to be able to do 315 to 365 or more for 20 reps. And that could really hurt you if you mess it up, right? So there's that fear factor going on at the same time, you know. Just wanted to bring that up.
Did Andrew tell us his favorite technique currently? Because I don't think I heard it. Maybe
I didn't.
Okay, I thought like I was going to feel like a bad. We're bad hosts
no,
here,
I went
Skip.
Off on
Stop listening or some shit.
Like, you know, like no. So currently, right now, I'm actually really, really enjoying the belt squat.
Okay.
And you know, I would say like right now, I like the hack squat. I like the belt squat. And then I think I sent you a video of I call them the Dante squats. Which is kind of a Hatfield squat where you're pushing the bar up against the rack.
Yeah. I'll add
that one.
I'll add that in post-production.
Yeah, I learned that from watching Dante teach it to Dusty Hanshaw. And I'd always done, you know, over the last couple of years, I'd been leaning more towards Hatfield squats or some type of a safety bar squat versus just a straight, you know, barbell back squat. Because I don't know about you guys, but like for me, the hardest part is getting my arms back to hold the bar properly. And it's different than when I was, say, 20, 25, because my arms are just a little different, which makes me shift my hips a little different, which puts my back in a much more compromised position. And, you know, back injury, once you have one of them, it's a history of them going on, you know, in your future. So, so I haven't put a bar on my back, even in a Smith machine, since I want to say 2017, maybe 2018.
No kidding.
It's been it's been that long. It's either been, a hack squat, a belt squat, a safety bar squat done Hatfield style, or I bought the spider bar from Elite FTS. I don't know if you guys have used that one yet.
I haven't used it.
It's a great bar.
Yeah, you had shown it to me, man, and I was on the fence. I got the Transformer bar, which
I think that's a better move because you could do a bunch more things with it.
Yeah, it showed up right before I'd gotten sick, so I'm just now messing with it. I tried. And I posted it too. Terrible technique on the a Hatfield squat. Basically, I just was trying to feel it out, and then of course I went over. I found a video. A guy named Murph on Elite FTS had a coaching log, and he had posted a video of how to do it properly. So I'm going to go back now and try that again. It's a technique I've never used before. It's weird, guys, because when I first thought of this idea, I didn't even think of hack squats. Like I was just thinking I didn't even think of machines really. I just thought of like the basic movements. You've got your front squat, you've got your traditional back squat. What is there? There's like sissy squats, you know, and then I thought, well, I'll add in some stuff. Here's what our group had said. I got a screen capture.
I wondered what they had said, what the poll kind of
so
what the final thing was.
Nags actually added in hack squat, and here's what we came up with. We had, and I just posted this a little bit ago, 37 people said hack squat, good old back squats 30 people, belt squat 10, front squats 5, Smith machine 3, V squat or similar 3. I added other, 2 people voted for that. Then we had one for sissy squat plus leg extension superset, and then somebody else added in leg press. So that's where I'm surprised.
You know what might be interesting is to do what is your most frequent go-to squat, and then break it down by age too. I think that would be kind of interesting
Yeah.
to look at.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I
I
think it
think
would be
that
like
would say quite a bit.
back squat. Yeah, I think it would go
Yeah.
back squat and then Smith squat. And then as we go up in age, it would elevate more towards hack squat and belt squat. You know what I mean?
Belt squat, yeah. And I would belt squat right now if I had one at the gym that I train in. I call them pit sharks, but that's just because that, I don't know that name. Apparently the first one I used was a pit shark and that stuck in my head. But I don't have access to one right now. I think when I switch over, I'm going to start training, and I don't want to sidetrack the conversation, but Scott will get a laugh out of this. I'm going to start training at Redcon in probably about 3 weeks, when my knee is good to go again and I can start training legs. I have to get back into the energy of people being around me. It's just becoming old, being the only person in the gym with my wife, turning the lights on and then turning the lights off when I leave. So they have one, and I'm excited to get to that leg equipment. But I very much like the belt squat or the pit shark. I think it's great, especially for someone who does have chronic back issues. It, of course, I don't want to say it takes the posterior chain out of the movement, because it doesn't do that, but the load on the posterior chain is significantly less than a regular squat, which is, again, beneficial for, someone who has any type of history of lower back work. And I'm going to clear my throat after I mute the thing here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I almost think that the belt squat, in a way, causes a little bit of traction, in a sense that it pulls your spine apart from where it's pulling from in the hips, versus the bar being lowered on your back, compressing down on your spine. So
I think there's two ways to do it. I would wonder how you do it, because I think there's two ways to do it. You can literally squat straight, and people have to be careful when they use the belt squat, because it depends on how you set up over the connection or over the chain and what lever position you use. You should really be squatting straight up and down, I think. At the same time, if you set up right and you're squatting at kind of an angle, and it's hard to show, but if you're kind of leaned over a little bit and you're squatting, almost pushing back. Exactly. There you go. Though I see that as two different ways, or two variations of doing that same movement. And I think some people may not know when they, lock in, because obviously let me see if I can explain this right. A typical pit shark has 3 connections on the lever. The furthest one out is going to be the one that's going to be, basically from a lever standpoint, it's going to make the load lighter. It isn't going to make it much lighter, but it's going to make it lighter. So people tend to think, I don't want to be, especially if you're hardcore, I got to get up here to the front. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you will load less plates. But it's also going to pull you into the machine. It's going to pull you forward a little bit more than if the connection is directly underneath you, pulling you straight down, like gravity would pull you straight down in a squat. So it just depends, I think, how you set it up. And I think people need to be aware, if they're not, of how they hook it up. And the best way to do that is take a video of yourself from the side and check not only your posture and the range of motion or the travel of the hips, but see how the connection to the machine and what lever position you're on, whether that is directly underneath you going straight up and down, or if there's an angle of pull that is backwards. Not backwards, but to the back.
Well, there a little while ago, there was a study, and they took 3 different belt squats. Right after it came out, Scott Stevenson and I did a podcast where he explained and broke down this study. But the study was talking about how much quad activation you get out of these 3 different brands. One brand was the Pit Shark. Another brand was, I believe, the Rogue Rhino. I can't remember the third one, but each one of them was different. So just like any machine, you have to feel each one out, because I think like the Pit Shark's on a lever, that's going to do one thing, versus the kind where there's just that hole in the floor with the cable coming up. Each machine, I think, is going to take different adjusting, and you really do have to feel it out. What I think, you can do the same thing with squats. Like I can do a squat that's all hip, I can do a squat that's all glute and ham, but my ability to your range of being able to change it is much more limited, because at the end of the day, you've got that barbell on your back, versus when you're at the hip, you can stand in all sorts of funky positions. Kind of like with a Smith, you can put your feet way out in front of you, do things you'd never do with a traditional barbell. So I do think a good point I think you bring up is, you really, if you're going to use a belt squat, you really need to think about what you're going to be activating and make sure you get that stance locked in first, is what it sounds like you're saying.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. hack squat. I didn't even think of adding hack squat. For some reason, I thought a hack squat being more like a machine, like a leg press. But do you guys want to put it on the list? Because 37 people did, like more than 50%.
Yeah, I mean, I consider it one of the better leg movements. I've done them for years. I think that, I don't want to say they're king for me, but I have probably hack squatted. I may have hack squatted throughout my time of training more than I have any other squat type movement. Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe statement. The only thing that you have to be careful with, I think these days, and I think it's these days versus the older machines, and maybe you guys have seen this as well, it depends on whether you can adjust the platform or if the platform is what I call too open. There are some hack squats where the angle of the back pad versus the angle of the platform is too open. It's open further than 90 degrees. And I think that's, over time, I think it's kind of dangerous. Yes, it does place more potential stress on your quads, and you'll notice if you have that angle, because you think to yourself, gosh, I have to be so much further up on the platform than I normally am on any other, hack squat. But there can be, over time, a lot more stress put on, your patellar tendons and the knee itself than if it's a 90-degree angle. And, we could throw in other things like the true squat and everything else, but I don't want to get sidetracked. There's a lot of options for legs. Do you guys know what I'm talking about the angle with that? Maybe I'm not explaining it very well either.
Yeah. It almost feels like your feet are sliding forward.
Exactly.
It almost feels like your feet are sliding forward because it's not a hard 45. Trying to show. Yep. It's like,
and it's funny because of that angle, like that made me take my change the type of shoes that I wear when I train legs, because I ended up wearing, I would get my leg shoes a half size smaller so that they were tight, so that my feet would never slide in the shoe, because I couldn't stand how my feet would push up against the front of the shoe because it would be uncomfortable. So I just wore them a half size, sometimes a full size too small, and they hurt like hell to walk around in, but they were great to train legs because my foot would not move. When your foot gets warm, the material expands. It's like a hat. If you wear a hat, you can put it on at first, it's tight as shit, and you're like, oh my God, how did I get this thing on? But then you warm up and you sweat, and it naturally kind of, it expands. It gets maybe a little moist, and or sweaty is a better word, and it expands a little bit. Same with your shoes. So if you do have any type of movement like that, make sure your shoes are tight as shit. You don't want to be sliding around in your fucking shoes, man, doing hack squats.
Yeah. Have you guys been to MI40 recently?
No, I should. It's down here. It's on the Gulf side, right? Isn't he in Tampa?
In Tampa, yeah. It's in Tampa. So anyway, last time I was there, they had it was a Watson hydraulic hack squat. Okay. Ooh. So you could set it up so that, the machine would start like this, and then mid set, literally a buddy could be cranking on the hydraulics and the back would go down like that. So it'd make it a little bit easier. Shit. So so it was actually a really cool machine. You could adjust the angle exactly how you wanted it based off what you're trying to do that day. And I'll tell you what, even just one plate when you're straight up feels like 225. So it's kind of a killer of a machine as you start adding plates. Obviously it gets easier as you put the hydraulically lower the back angle a little bit. But it's definitely a really cool piece. I'd never seen that before. It was made by Watson.
Nice. Yeah, I know they have Watson dumbbells down there too. I've heard, the ones with the spinning handles.
Dude, they're like that thick.
They're weird, man.
They're like weird. they're like Coke cans. Like you're like, I don't know how to get it up here. Like it feels weird, Yeah,
I agree.
And they're that thick, and they spin. That'd be a bitch to press with, wouldn't it?
It's weird the first time you use them. Like you have to go like 20, 30 pounds lighter just to like get adjusted to them. But yeah.
You know what? Talking about hack squats, I'll say that for me, I think for a lot of people, that is one of the machines that is so unique that, as in each brand can be, and you guys have already kind of talked about that a little bit. Each brand can be so different. There's some hack squats. Like I may want a hack squat really bad, but if I'm in a gym that I don't like their hack squat, I'm not even going to touch it, But then you get the hack squats that are nice. I really like mine. It's a Body Master hack squat. and the angle
Body
is,
Master's great. Yeah.
yeah, I can actually, if I get up here, I'll pop, like my door's closed, but it's literally, I sit here and podcast and look at it. I love that thing. The only thing is it's really, really heavy. So, there's like the Cybex hack squat, I can get a lot more plates on it. Part of that is like it's nice on the ego, I guess, for videos to have more plates on it, but you also kind of have like a little bit more room to get that specific weight you want before you have to start breaking out the 5s and the 10s. You know what I mean?
Now, all together,
we should talk.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we should probably bring this up because I know some people watching are going to be like, why didn't you guys talk about this?
What?
How about the trend right now to not just this exercise, but every exercise, reverse band everything? Have you seen?
Thank you. Yeah, my phone. I can't even prop my phone up anymore because it falls. Sorry.
I think the ego thing is going a little far, because you got guys that you're like, look, I've seen you on a hack squat and you hit 4 plates for like a hard set of 8, and then you put the bands on and you got like 7 plates on there. It's like, who you think you're fooling, dude? Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm not saying there's not a place for it, if your knees are injured or something like that, and I do like the feel of the accommodating resistance as you're going from, harder, an easier to a harder. But then I tell people to do this. Why don't you band from the bottom then, if you still want that accommodating resistance feel?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, no, I couldn't do that. Then I wouldn't be able to put 6 or 8 plates on there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. My hack squat.
I'm not a resistance band guy.
I can get like 3
I'm not a
plates.
resistance band guy.
3 plates, I think, are the most. Yeah, on my hack squat.
Okay, but it depends on the. Yeah, I was gonna say it depends on the hack squat because I was just gonna say all together, all 3 of us together. I know we're gonna say the same shit. What is the easiest, lightest hack squat that you can load a ton of plates on? Icarian, right?
Icarian's a good.
Which one? Oh, Icarian. Yes.
Yeah.
Icarian, yeah, because the angle is further back and it's smooth as shit. Don't get me wrong, I love that. But it's funny because at the same time you can load it up. Typically, if the piece is old enough, it has been re-welded because that platform flexes over time, and you can see it move. And I see Dusty doing hacks on, and I'm like, bro, it's gonna snap on you, man. It's gonna fucking break. Oh shit! But yeah, I think that in my experience, I think that's the easiest one to load up because the angle is lower. Back in the '80s, we had hack squats. I remember Gold's Gym in East Lansing, which isn't there anymore, and I would doubt if we had 10,000 listeners that even one person would go, oh, I've been there. But it was almost a straight up and down hack squat, but you could adjust the platform. So anytime you get a hack squat where you can adjust the platform, much like Arsenal makes a pendulum where you can adjust the platform, that shit is gold. That's good because then if your knees aren't bothering you, you might want to open it up a little bit more. If they are bothering you, you want more hip involvement, you can, close it up a little bit. But yeah, that was a really nice setup, and shit, those pieces they're gone. they're not to be had anymore.
No.
So I'm on the fence because I didn't think hack squat was on the plate for us. I was gonna say just back squats. That was gonna be my pick. Was just traditional barbell back squat. But now that I got this transformer bar, I think I'm evolving. I think it's gonna do a lot for me. Although, like I said, man, I'm hardly lifting anything right now. I've gotten through 1 leg workout, so in a way, this is kind of motivation for me too to keep. So I've done 3 sets so far. Back into training legs. That's been it. But it feels good.
Scott, that's better than me.
Yeah.
You have 3 sets more than I have in the last 6-8 weeks. So good for you. I'm jealous, actually.
It felt good. 5-minute break between each set to catch my breath. What's that, Andrew?
I was going to say, did you find with the transformer bar and bars like the spider bar that it kind of pulls you forward a little bit more at the top? Have you noticed that at all?
You know what, man? I'll be looking for that. I have. It was such light weight.
Once
it's
you
hard
start throwing
to say.
some weight on, I think you'll notice that like you're almost getting an upper thoracic kind of workout in a sense as well to get the upper body tight because it does have the tendency to want to pull you forward once you get to a certain weight. Like for me, the first time I did like 3 plates on it, I almost fell over because I was like, oh, I gotta really stay upright on this, you know? So I'm almost like pushing up on the handles on my bar versus, just passively holding on in a sense.
That kind of brings me to something. One that we didn't get a lot of hits on here, a lot of likes was the front squat. One of the reasons I wanted this bar was I love quad training. I like to squat to really focus on the quad. I've been trained to elevate my heels. I have really poor ankle flexibility. So I've elevated my heels since about 2013, and I was able to grow my legs that way. Sure, it's a little bit more shearing on the knee, I think. And I know they make like the platforms now that people use. I like that mild elevation. But I really wanted to see what this bar was like in that front position, because you can, bring the plates forward and do more of like a front squat. I could definitely feel the difference in that, and I'm excited to experiment with it. By the way, this program is not presented to you by Kabuki, but you can check them out. Or get this though, we are kind of affiliated with Elite now. We're
kinda. We're definitely affiliated with Elite.
We've got a link.
Elite FTS.
We've got a link on Elite FTS thanks to Skip. So shout out to those guys and shout out to the Spider Bar.
Spider Bar is great, man. I think Spider Bar is great.
What do you guys think about front squats?
Well, I'll talk about this one a bit because I got a little experience working with athletes myself as well. I used to coach, or I was a strength and conditioning coach for a semi-pro basketball team for 3 years.
Oh.
And we didn't have any of our athletes back squat because these guys are all 6'5", 6'8". I think the shortest guy was like 5'11". So when you have a longer femur, it's actually pretty unsafe to put heavy weights on a guy's back. And it's more safe to put the load more in front of them because it's going to be more in their center of gravity. And they're actually going to target their quads a lot more that way versus their lower back. So I think if you have longer femurs or you're a taller guy, you might do better, at least initially, trying the front squat at first. My only problem with the front squat is even 135 now, that shit just hurts. It doesn't feel comfortable like it used to when I was younger for some reason. And I got more muscle now, so I can't do the math and figure out why. But I was a decent front squatter up until I was 25 or something like that. And now I don't even think I could put a third or half the weight on my upper chest and bang out, even half the reps I used to. I don't know if you guys experienced that over time too.
Yeah, I feel the same way with the front squat. No, I don't think that's I think really I think that anybody who's good at front squatting, there has to be, it takes time to build into being able to, I don't know if it's necessarily, I don't think it's coordination. It is for the first handful of workouts because it just feels a little more awkward. But the reason I don't like them is, and I think you make a good point with the long femur, there are exceptions to where, and that's why it's always hard when we talk about topics or we talk about or answer questions stuff. We're trying to give the best information that we can for the majority of people, but everything is still so much an individual basis that it doesn't cover everything. So we may say, oh, front squats are great. And then someone will go, oh shit, I've been trying them for a year because you guys said so, and they're not great for me. Well, there's the exception. So with front squats, the thing that I don't like is it's just so uncomfortable and it limits my breathing so much having it in front of me that I swear that my delts and the ability to keep the bar solid and where it's supposed to be is harder than the workload on my legs. It just becomes so laborious trying to keep everything, my breathing and the bar in place and not having my delts. I swear when I'm done, it feels like I've done a front delt because I don't know about you guys. I'm going to try to show it right here in my thing. I can't cross my hands and do this shit. I don't know if it's because I have such a narrow clavicle, my shoulder. I don't know, but I have to hold in front and have my elbows up to be able to create that cushion to where it feels relatively comfortable until I'm 5 or 6 reps in, and then it's fuck my life because I can't breathe or anything else. I'm right there with you. I'm not a big fan of them for that reason. And I think you were talking about studies earlier and talking with Scott Stevenson.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, he posted a study or a couple studies not long ago that said that there wasn't much of any difference between quad activation and glute activation from the front to the rear squat. And I found that kind of surprising. But again, it may have been, you don't know who the people are that are in the study, whether they're, they have longer femurs, they're taller, they're shorter. It's hard telling that because there's so many variables there. But I was actually surprised by that because I would have expected to see more quad involvement from a front squat than a rear squat. And that's not what that study, I think it was 2 studies said.
Okay. I didn't see that post. I didn't see that, but that does seem weird to me. It's been a movement I've never really been comfortable with, but damn, I'll tell you what, man, when someone can front squat a lot of weight it's freaking impressive to watch, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, do
Phil
you guys
is a
remember
good example.
Feels good. Do you remember the Project
Yeah.
Super Heavyweight? They're on YouTube and stuff when Justin Harris and Steve Kukla would
Yeah.
load like 6 plates or something up for their heavy sets.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, how do you even like comfortably breathe with that weight up there? You know?
Right,
Those guys were
exactly.
definitely impressive with the front squats. Some of those Olympic lifters actually too are like super, super impressive.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about? Like the Olympic guys? Yeah.
Yeah,
They're not big or anything usually, but
incredible. And sometimes those guys do have crazy quads. You ever see that? Like the Olympic lifters, if they've got anything, they've got quads on them.
Mhm.
I think the big reason for that is I think that might be one of the only lifts where they're getting some eccentric loading, because most of the Olympic lifts are just concentric and speed stuff. They get very, they drop the bars when they're doing anything overhead.
True.
So they're not getting any of the eccentric loading, which I think that's one of the main reasons why they have smaller upper bodies compared to their lower bodies, because they're actually getting the eccentric on the squats and whatnot. But
Yeah, that's an interesting insight. I could see there being something to that.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for watching another podcast here at Think Big Bodybuilding Media. And thank you to our great sponsor, TrueNutrition.com, for making this all possible. TrueNutrition.com is owned by Dante Trudell, the creator of DC Training. He wanted to create a supplement company that offered high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. High-quality protein powders, just about every type you could think of. Huge variety of flavors, plus health and performance supplements. Check them out, TrueNutrition.com. And hey, if you use our code ADVICES, you directly support our podcasting. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the program.
Kind of like what I said at the beginning, squats are something that we always think if you want a big physique, you got to have big legs. And if you want big legs, you've got to squat. I think that there are people who are getting away with trying to get around the hard work. And I think that all of us who have been around, we all can be like, kids today, that type of thing. But there's some reality to it. And there was a comment we had that I thought would kind of be a really nice kind of transition into some of our listener stuff. This was from Nate Spear. He had said, please discuss thoughts on the importance of squatting, deadlifting, barbell row, T-bar row, the hard lifts, the first few years of a young bodybuilder's journey, and how does a young bodybuilder know what information to use? For example, I see a lot of young guys taking advice from pros that have changed their training over the years. So they might hear a pro say that all he does is hack squat and leg press, but little does he know that pro squatted and walking lunged for his first 5 years, and now they apply what the pro is doing with their own training. As we talk about this, for anybody who's not familiar with us, maybe you're just tuning in to this show to the first time. Maybe you don't know us. Maybe you don't know Andrew. Andrew is the coach of Nate, the guy who made that post, who is arguably one of the best bodybuilders in the MPC right now. Shout out Nate. I know if he was watching at least. And Nate has some incredible quads. He's a guy, he hasn't been training for super long, but he's worked his ass off, and he's worked hard. I mean, he's been training for, is it like competing, I should say, for under 10 years, is it, Andrew?
He's been competing for like 6 years.
Okay.
And he's probably been training for like 8, but I don't think he was seriously training until about 6 years ago. Okay. So, but right from when he started training, he was doing the hard stuff. And today he's still doing the hard stuff. So, yeah. Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that, about his training, what he's done to get where he is, because he's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say other than he doesn't shy away from the hard stuff. Like, he's doing the squats, he's doing like he'll send me a video of him doing like a 5-plate squat for like 10 reps, like continuous tension, no stopping and breathing. And then he'll be like, oh yeah, this was after this. And he'll show me the hack squat he did before that with like 7 plates, no bands, and where he got like 20 reps or something like that. So, I mean, that's just an example of like a typical leg day for him. When he used to come up and train legs with us up here in Vermont, it was like I had to mentally get ready. You know what I mean? Like it was, it was definitely good because we used to push each other so hard on some of these sets that, you're lying on the floor afterwards. I'd go outside to puke for a minute in the cold air or something. Like, it was definitely like intense stuff. And I know he trains that way every single day. I mean, you guys have seen probably recently his he really improved his upper body pressing, shoulder pressing, and inclined barbell pressing 3 to 4 plates for like 8 reps, not just like a 1 rep, almost carry your pec type thing, like a full like 8 to 10 reps. And when we started, he was doing like 185, 225. So he's grinded out, adding 5 pounds to the bar every workout, that, you know, just moving up those ranks like crazy. And it's a testament to his hard work for sure. I don't think he literally takes any workout for granted, because you know, like you're like, oh, you know, I just got done the competing season and I've got, you know, 10 months until I'm going to get on stage again. And, you know, there's that stuff that can get in your head of like, okay, you got time to kind of relax and take it easy. I think mentally, he's like right back in the lab, trying to get as strong and as big as he can and carrying that over into his next competitive season so that there's literally no lag. Like I have to tell him when to take like 4 or 5 days off, like, just, you know, don't go to the gym or, you know, go do some of the fluffy machines and that kind of thing for 3 days in a row. Yeah. You know, I mean, he's definitely one of your hardest workers out there.
Cool. I just wanted to make sure we kind of painted a picture of who he is and his work ethic, because he is a guy who has stuck by that stuff, and it's really the hard work. It's really paid off for him too. I'm really excited to kind of segue, like I said, into this topic, because I feel like this is completely associated. I mean, none of those movements that we were talking about are easy. You know, Skip, you were talking about like 20 rep sets on the squat. You can do the same thing on the hack squat. Those are going to be some of the hardest exercises that you do in the gym. I think anything you do with legs where you're really working, I mean, your heart rate gets so high, your oxygen gets so taxed. As you were talking about those movements, Skip, I can't think of, and I think you kind of referenced this too, Andrew, I can't think of anything else in the gym that's that difficult.
No, I think T-bar and barbell rows, though, those are tough too. High rep deads, definitely.
There you
Absolutely.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. And, you know, Nate made his question is very valid, and I'm actually glad that he asked it, because we may have skipped over it without really touching on this. But, you know, he's right in the sense that, you know, when people beginning to train or starting to train relative newbies, they do go to people with a lot of experience, or prefer to go to people with a lot of experience to get training advice. And they may get the wrong advices, in the sense that we do tend to talk about what we do now versus when we started. And I think a good trainer will make sure that the information that they're giving a specific person is based on their level of training. And things like squats, think complicated exercises that involve a lot of muscles and involve a lot of coordination, develop nerve pathways that, you know, a tricep press down just doesn't. Close grip bench presses in a case like that, or dips, those things are more important for the person starting out, because they don't know really how to generate intensity. And even when they do learn how to do that, they're still not able to apply that level of intensity that they're going to get in 4, 5, 6 years with that same movement. So there is this learning curve. You do have to get in there and just really pound those basic movements. But I think as you progress, you get to the point where, you know, like Andrew's talking about, or I'm talking about, where, you know, or Steve Kukalo, you know, or Phil Heath, who don't pull big anymore. Of course, Phil never really pulled very big anyway, but Steve, you know, he doesn't pull big deadlifts anymore, and he'll admit it, but he did early on. He may not even, you know, front squat anywhere near what he was doing, or back squat. I don't know much about Steve's training anymore, but it does evolve. It has to evolve. It can't ever, your training can't ever stay the same, because if it does, you're in some fashion, you're making a mistake, because your physique evolves, and what your physique needs evolves, and the wear and tear on the body evolves, and typically will get worse. And even if it doesn't get worse, you're moving larger poundages. So you're going to move into this section where, I use the curls as an example. You know, when you first start out, you can curl straight armed and you can come up and everything. Try curling straight arm anymore after you build any type of mass on your arm, and it's just not going to work. You can't force your wrists into positions that you could have when you were smaller. So there are those physical changes that take place over time too, and then of course degeneration of whether it be knees or back or whatever else. Training has to evolve, and I think trainers need to be careful when they're giving information to someone, that they're giving the information that applies to them specifically based on their history of training.
Can I touch on that one too a little bit?
Have at it, man.
To Skip's point, I think, in a way, maybe the Instagram social media might be kind of causing a lot of this because, and the fact that we live in a world where like people can get anabolic substances by going on a website, ordering them almost as quickly as Amazon, and they're there 2 days later. So my point with this is that I think a lot of shortcuts, in a sense, have been taken, or it appears that they've been taken by front loading higher dosages of gear, using more dangerous types of gear than maybe someone would start with when they were younger in their career. And they can get away with some of those less intense, less hardcore, training exercises like deadlifts, barbell rows, back squats, that kind of thing. I just think that kind of plays a role into it as well, because the other thing is like everybody's a coach nowadays. So, Joe Blow, who has really good genetics, who's been training for 2.5, 3 years, takes a bunch of gear, goes pro in basically 1.5 years, and it looks like he's put on 40 pounds of muscle. So some kid's going to hire him as a coach and going to tell him exactly what he did. Well, maybe he didn't have to do the hard stuff to put on his muscle because he's in that upper echelon of genetics. Because as this sport has grown, I mean, you guys know when we all started, especially you guys, it was a real fringe sport, right? Yeah. You go into the gym and it's like maybe one other guy had done a bodybuilding show and they took you under their wings, had you do the hard workouts with them, and, just kind of told you, how things went. Now the sport has grown so big that we're attracting people, genetically elite people that we might have not have ever seen before because bodybuilding is so cool today. True. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the talent pool is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I feel sorry for a lot of people. I've said it a lot over the years, but and I always describe the industry and finding a trainer as a giant sea of turds. It really is difficult. It has to be incredibly difficult for someone who is not well versed with the industry, doesn't know names or reputations or track records, to be able to sift through and find out who really does know their shit and who is, I don't want to say clueless. I don't think anyone is, or I'd like to think no one is really clueless. But it has to be very difficult, I think, when you don't know what you're getting into. I don't know how many times I've had people contact me and go, well, I've had such a bad luck or a bad run, training with trainers that I'm just not sure. And I mean, I hear it so often that it's just kind of like, yep, you and everybody else. I mean, welcome.
Yeah. I think another thing that I see, this is something I come up against with the younger people I work with. And when I say younger, I'll say guys in their early 20s, when they are modeling after the genetic elite, is they're not only are they picking, well, okay, let me say this. I see some guys that are maybe tailoring their workouts after guys that are already like quote unquote there, that don't need to put on any mass. I think that is one thing. But another thing I see is they're training with like maybe too much volume. I see guys that, and I think of a guy I just started working with who's training 7 days a week. And this guy trains hard from what it sounds like. I mean, you could only train so hard though if you're training 7 days. The way I describe it is it's like because I've done it when I was younger. I remember going through a phase where I was like, I don't have anything else to do with my life. I know I'm not supposed to do this. I'm just going to go every day. And eventually I came to my senses. But you come to a point where like you can't get the intensity you need. It's almost like I punched out at work and I got to the gym and I punched the clock, and I'm like, what am I doing today? What's my routine? Okay, I'll go through that routine. You're not able to get as much out of it. And I see that as being almost just as much of an issue for some of the younger guys. And then Andrew, like you're talking about with the chemical enhancement, you can really kind of make up for overtraining and staying in the gym and being able to continue pushing if you're using gear, especially if you're using it really before you need it. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a 1 + 1 = 2. I think that there's going to be a lot of diminishing returns that are going to come. You're going to get burnt out, I guess, a lot faster. That's kind of kind of related. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's I guess another place where I see young people making a mistake when it comes to modeling after the elite, because there are guys out there that can handle a lot more. And I've referenced this a bunch of times, but when Scott Stevenson and I spoke with Brandon Curry last year, we broke down like what happens at Oxygen Gym. At Oxygen Gym, they grind you, they push you, you train a lot. And for the vast majority of people, that doesn't work. And if it doesn't work for you at Oxygen Gym, then you get pushed to the wayside. But Brandon Curry can handle that, so guys like him stay there because it works, because there is that genetic elite that can handle getting pushed. He had said too, Brandon said, like, he listens to all the podcasts and he listens to, the smart people in the industry. And one of the big things for him was, because I asked him, I was like, what was the real difference maker that allowed you to push that little extra bit? He was already great, but what made him able to push that extra level? And he said, I'd always listened to the voice of reason that you need to take a lot of rest and that you needed to give your muscles a break. And then I realized at Oxygen that I didn't need that I was that tiny fraction, that little tiny 0.5%, the Brandon Currys of the world, as I say now, that can do that. The rest of us can't, Nate Spear, I'm sure that he needs probably not as much rest as I do, but I'm sure he needs more rest than Brandon Curry does. I don't know. You tell me, am I wrong, Andrew? I'm curious.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I think, you're talking about the genetic 0.02% of all bodybuilders out there, the Brandon Currys, the Phil Heaths, the Big Ramis, that, their bodies assimilate proteins faster than the rest of us. And by that token, that means they're recovering, assimilating muscle protein and recovering from those hard strenuous workouts faster than the rest of us. You add in chemicals that speed up that process. They're utilizing those chemicals better than the rest of us. It's not necessarily a matter of hard work. I think there's a lot of people out here, amateurs, pros, that work very, very hard. Yeah, but some people respond to the training, the stimulus, and the food better than the rest of us. And that's just all it is. If you get into the sport and you accept that and you're like, I'm going to do the best I can with my set of variables, then I think you're going to do okay. But if you go into it thinking like, oh, well, Brandon Curry trains 6.5, 7 days a week, and he's taking this, and this, and he's this exact diet, no, it's not going to work for you. You're going to have a distended gut, you're going to have bad joints, and you're probably going to be out of the sport in 2 years because you're going to get burnt out.
Hey, easy. Go easy on me here, pal. Let's not get mean here. No, and I want to add one thing before we move on. I do think it's important. I've changed my perspective on how I view the newbie, not ideology, but the way they perceive things. I used to think it was stupid because I would think that it was illogical, but it's not. It's very logical for someone who has no background and understanding of bodybuilding, training, supplementation, recovery, nutrition, things like that, to look at someone who is big and see what they do. I mean, look, when I was younger, I'll fully admit, if a guy was big in the gym, I wanted to know what he did. Sure. And whatever he would have told me to do, I was going to fucking do it, because logically you think that's what got him there. It's going to get me there. And that's why I think that these types of discussions, I wish they happen more often in the industry, because people need to know that there are steps to get there. We all want to cut corners at any point we can. I've been training for 37 years. I'll still cut a corner like a motherfucker if I know that I can or think I can cut it. The problem is I've spent so much time realizing that cutting corners doesn't work anymore, but I still have that in my brain where I'm thinking to myself, maybe I can cut corners on this knee injury and I can do this or I can do that. And I'm reminded quickly, or soon after that I can't do that. I think it's logical. It's sensical to look at somebody who's big and in shape. So I don't hold it against them for having that idea that that's who they need to go with. I almost want to put it more on the trainers for misrepresenting themselves, but I think part of it is ego. The other part is I think that people are truly, when they'll say a guy turns pro in 3 years, I think in his mind, I think he does think he's qualified, and I think he thinks he's experienced, and I think, and those terms, I guess, are relative terms when you think about it. He is certainly more qualified than the person coming to him. So there's that. Sure. It's hard to get mad at somebody and go, come on, you don't have to work with me, but work with someone who knows what the hell they're doing. Don't throw your money at this guy when he really doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Work with someone who knows what they're doing. But that's part of the learning process. It's after raising kids, it's the same thing. You tell your kids over and over and over, don't do this stupid shit. Don't do that stupid shit. But they have to learn by making those mistakes. And just like I had to, and you had to, and they're going to have to do the same thing.
Fair enough. We do have some other listener questions that were added in here. Before we do move on, though, I mean, do you guys want to add anything else, Andrew?
No, I think we kind of beat that topic up 6 different ways, and I don't know. I think we covered it.
So we
I'll throw one thing in. Can I throw one thing in?
Hey, you're the one that's got the dinner appointment, so it's up to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Good point. If you still want more information about squatting and you really want to look to a source that has just extremely high levels of, say, knowledge around squatting and things like that, Elite FTS is the place to be. I mean, these guys. I've had questions about things where I have gone to those guys and they'll answer the question, and the things that they know about foot placement, knees. We were talking about knee valgus just yesterday or the day before. There was a video and I mean, these people, they know their shit. And when you're talking about the bars and everything else, of course, Elite FTS, I don't know if you can hear Linus in the background. He doesn't like that it's so quiet. Sorry about that. There's no background noise other than me talking. But Elite FTS is the leading equipment manufacturer, and I know there are other equipment manufacturers who would argue that, but they would lose. Elite FTS is elite, and they sell the best training equipment, especially for powerlifting and bars and things like that. That if you're looking for bars, or you want a different bar, or you're a gym owner and you want a variety of bars, check out Elite FTS, because they've got all the shit. All the good shit, all the good toys.
Yeah, I've been watching more of their videos on YouTube to help me with my technique. Like I said, I wanted to figure out how to do a Hatfield squat, and I just typed it into YouTube, and one of the first things that came up was Murph's training log. So, I mean, it never hurts. I've squatted for a long time, I'll put it that way, and I still just learned something by checking that out. So I'm all for that. All right. So like I was starting to say, I asked for training questions. This is our Easter training extravaganza. Although the recorded version is going to come out after Easter, it's all still valid stuff. We got a bunch of training stuff. I'm not sure. I'll just go. We kind of covered this a little bit. Actually, I think we already did. One of our listeners had asked about front squats. Now, here's the deal. This is one of my clients. He says, can front squats be as effective as back squats for leg development? Thanks. He's kind of in a situation where this is a big dude, over 3 bills, and he's getting into some pretty good shape now. He's been working with me for a little while. Incredible lats, strong guy. He can't get his arms back. The first time, I'm gonna maybe have to put him on blast here for a minute. It scared the shit out of me. He showed me his back squat. And what he did, I can't remember if he was squatting like 3 or 4 plates. He took his arms and he put them, I'm going to move over here so you can see me, through the holes of the plates.
Yeah.
So his arms were straight out. And I'm just thinking, like, fuck, if he has to bail, like, what happens?
Wow.
You get turned into a T-bone, or a wishbone. I'm thinking, just get.
Did you say a T-boner? You said a T-boner.
I said that. T-bone or Skip.
We
hear what we want to hear. But I don't know. We kind of I think already covered that with. They can be just as effective, and for him, obviously, it's going to be more effective than back squat. But I'm still trying to get him to work on his shoulder mobility.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I think that's important shit too. What else do we have here? And then I'm gonna actually grab some carbs. I've got some weird blood sugar stuff going on. It's not insulin, just from being.
Is that where you're sweating a little bit?
Oh,
yeah, I'm starting.
I think I know this
hypo.
guy. Yeah, I wondered. You go grab your carbs. We'll cover it.
All right, you read it, Skip.
Because I actually know this guy. No problem. I know this guy. He won his class this weekend and he lost a split decision. I hate, because it's happened to me a couple times. God, I hate losing a split decision. I know it should be this pat on the back, like, oh, you were battling, and your buddies try to make you feel better about it, but you lost a split decision and you were that close, and it's like, oh. But anyway, he we got another show in about 3 weeks, and I was pretty happy for him. He's in the physique division, but great physique. Anyway, question: thoughts on training a body part that is highly developed every other week to work on growing a lagging body part? Also, shout out to me for helping with my class this weekend. I guess I got ahead of myself. Thoughts on training a body part that is highly developed every other week to work on growing. Okay. What do you think? Run with it.
Well, first, congratulations on the class win. It's always fun. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with. I'm always try something and see how it's working, and if it's not working, go back to something else kind of guy. So I would say absolutely. Pull it back. Maybe not once a week. Maybe once every 5 to 6 days. If his split is like a push pull lower body, maybe do push pull lower, push pull. A couple days off, then start the push pull thing again. But yeah, I wouldn't see a problem with taking a highly developed body part out of the regular training mix and working it a little less frequently. What do you think?
And I think too, when you bring up, let's use arms as an example, even switching to just push pull legs does put, say, your triceps at the end of a chest and shoulder workout. You're not going to be able to hit them as hard. You could probably lower the volume a little bit. Same with biceps. So that's an option there too. I know myself, and I'm staying with arms as the example. I don't have very good body parts, but my arms and calves tend to be better than everything else. I just wish that my everything else grew and was in such great condition as my limbs. But anyway, what I did was a couple years ago, I think it's been a few years now, but I said, my arms are in pretty good shape. They're going to keep their size from heavy pressing and pulling. I'll train arms every other week, kind of like as an experiment. And the fucking things grew. They didn't grow like, oh my God, now they're just even huger than they were before. But they grew in the sense that I made more progress strength-wise than I had in the last 3 years prior. And I didn't kick back on intensity or really how I trained them, but just on the frequency. And I was surprised by that. And the more I thought about it, I shouldn't have been surprised, because I do think a lot of people tend to overtrain arms. I mean, what's the first thing that someone thinks of when their arms are lagging? They're going to train them more frequently. Well, you're already pounding them with heavy pulling and pushing, and then you're now adding even more direct work on top of the direct work you were doing. Now, if we change that to, say, chest or legs or something like that, if that's a body part that's highly developed, I mean, I think logically it does make sense. If it is more developed, you could probably train it less frequently and then be able to give the time and the recovery to other muscle groups that you're trying to bring up. I think the big important thing here is when you're going to give more time, to a weaker body part, you also have to make sure that the added training is going to help versus you being overtrained and actually needing more recovery. And I think you'll find out real quick, 6 to 8 weeks should probably give you a good idea, because if you're still not progressing any better, then it's typically not going to be, well, now I need even more work. It's probably going to be that the recovery is the issue and you're going to have to back off. Because what's weird about recovery, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I mean, I think you would, but you can have other muscle groups that grow relatively well and tend to recover, and then you can have a muscle group that doesn't recover as well. And it's kind of an odd thing. So there's almost two ways of looking at overtraining. You can overtrain a specific muscle group, then you can overtrain your entire CNS, where your body is just overtrained as a whole. And I think that, one of the ways I came up with that was I could overtrain my upper chest and start to lose strength. I would regress on my upper chest pressing, but then I could open with a flatter decline press and still continue to progress. And it was just the weirdest, most bizarre thing. And this happened years ago, and I just kind of liked it. I thought, wow, okay, well, that seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that kind of just gets back to what I was saying. Like, try it out for, a training cycle, whether it's 4 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, and chart your progress. Right. And, if it's working, obviously stay with it. Because at the same token, we don't want to make a great body part worse, right? We want to keep it as a great body part. We just want to give more attention or do whatever would be more effective to get those other body parts to come up a little bit. And I think there's some things you can do with that in terms of nutrition, maybe pushing a little bit more nutrition and maybe certain special chemicals on certain days to try to, give a little bit more attention to those body parts that do need to come up, so that you might not even need to take, your strong body part out of that rotation. Maybe just cut it down to, like, if you're doing, 6 hard sets for, say, a chest workout, if that's your good body part, maybe just cut it to 3 and, spend more time on your delts and your other body parts that need a little bit more work. But I do think you can get around weak body parts with, better, certain nutritional strategies and certain chemical strategies, and also certain rest strategies. I think if you put a day off before your weak body part and plan a day off afterwards, I think that's going to make a good amount of difference, more so actually than almost any of those other modalities that I was talking about.
I agree completely.
So you're well rested, you're glycogen fed, you're glycogen full, and then you train, stimulate, and then you're giving yourself a full a day of rest afterwards before you hit the other body parts. I think you're going to increase your recovery on that bad body or that poor body part, and it's going to lead to bringing coming up.
Agreed. Yep.
I'm back. I pretty much agree with you guys on most everything, so I'm not going to say anything on this one because I'm probably just going to say stuff you guys already said. Instead, I got another one here.
Well played. Well played.
We got a trap training question here, and I've got some stuff I will add in when it comes back around to me. Techniques to build traps if deadlifts and heavy to moderate shrugs are a no-go because of low back pain. Who wants to take this one first?
Heavy shrugs, heavy deadlifts. You want it?
I got one. So, all right, this is an exercise that I don't really see a lot of people doing. I'm not saying I invented it or anything, but everyone has probably a T-bar row, chest supported T-bar row in their gym.
Yeah.
If you basically put the weight on there, keep your arms straight, and then retract, targeting your medial traps, you will get a nasty pump there. And if you can go pretty heavy, you can go 3-4 plates, but you don't really need to. I would say 2 to 3 plates on that if you're an experienced bodybuilder, and you can, if you can T-bar row 4 or 5 plates, I think 2 or 3 plates is going to be your sweet spot. Sets of 12 to 15 or something like that. And I think you're really going to target at least the lower medial part of your traps. It might not get, fully up in the capped area, but I've seen a lot of growth there by doing that exercise myself.
I can see that.
I think that's good advice. What I was envisioning or seeing in my head was, and I don't know how bad his lower back is, so maybe getting into position could be tough, but if you set up a high incline and adjustable bench and you really high, like not straight up, but like this much of an incline, and you lean into it, there's a catch here though, and this is fucking important. You have to be able to stand on the frame of the bench or it will slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or tip. So if you can lean into it and do dumbbell shrugs that would be not straight up, but kind of up and back because of the incline, then it would be similar to what you're saying. So I think with your example, it would be easier to get into position if he had lower back problems versus trying to get heavier dumbbells into position on an incline, because you'd have to like lean into it. You'd have to almost kind of fall into the bench a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think both are possible. Yours might be the better option though.
Well, maybe if you set up 2 benches alongside it with the dumbbells resting on that so that you're kind of squat down to pick them up. Your arms are already locked out, and you kind of, your feet are on the back of the bench, the platform to keep it steady. And you stand up with the weights. So you're not like, coming forward with them. You're kind of gliding up the bench a little bit. It might be too much work, or you might need a buddy that maybe you got one of them and a buddy hands you the other one. If you have a training partner,
right.
That might be the best for that.
And I think you're right. It would probably work, but then if you use 3 benches in my gym, you're probably going to get bitched at some point. Somebody's going to be pissed because they're going to be waiting to do something.
Well, didn't somebody say he was the biggest guy? I mean, or maybe that was Scott's line.
Well, that, and I'm usually the only one in my gym now, but I guess I was thinking of the gym that I train clients in too. So
I got a couple thoughts. I feel like number one, I see people using way too much weight on shrugs, and they're not using a good range of motion. So, I mean, I've dealt with low back issues too. I've trained and had to watch my low back even doing shrugs. I think that my first thought would be, can you get more out of less? Oh, Jeremy's with us right now. What's up, man? He's watching the show live. What does he say here? Skip, I got to move some stuff around here. He tried that today. He tried your move today.
Oh, okay, cool. Very cool.
Putting my knees on the bottom of an incline. Didn't have to go heavy, and it worked really good. Cool.
So he put his knees on the bench. So he's kind of like, he's like sitting on the bench, like in a kneeling position.
I think he's facing.
Damn, that's got to be awkward. Yeah.
Yeah,
but he said he's on his knees.
That's even harder to get into.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. But he may have done that because he didn't have the frame to stand on. Because I would think, I mean, standing against it would be a lot easier. But if you don't have the frame to stand on, it's going to move on you, or it's going to tip forward.
Yeah.
So my thought was, look at how much weight you're using. Look at your technique. And that, I think that really goes into play for all of us. But especially if you have a back issue, you already can't sling weight around in a lot of stuff you're doing.
Right.
You know, my leg training for a long time with low back issues was, how do I get the most I can while working within my limitations, you know, with X amount of pounds. I think about like one of Meadows' things that when I used to train back with Shelby, we'd do shrugs at the end of the workout, and John would have us do like a squeeze at the top for 1 full second and then a slow negative. How often do you really see people doing a slow negative on shrugs, let alone squeezing all the way up? A lot of times, like I was starting,
a 2-second squeeze.
Yeah, we've done the 2 second.
I think a lot of them we
squeezes.
wrote in the 2-second squeezes, and that cuts your weight down by about 30-40% easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't care what you're using before. You might only need, like, I mean, a strong guy might only be using 85-pound dumbbells with a 2-second squeeze and the slow negative. So, I mean, you could really get creative, and I think you have to get creative if you want to keep getting stronger with low back issues. So that's one thing. I don't know how he would do with this. Also, I wonder too, low back, can he train sitting down? If he can, I mean, a seated shrug, there's that. Or I don't really do these a lot, but have you guys ever seen those like reverse shrugs in the Smith machine?
Yeah.
Overhead.
Yeah. But again, I think it just comes down to the. Yeah, but I think overhead like that, I think, again, it would probably load his. I got to go against you on one thing, Scott.
What's that?
I don't think sitting down and doing shrugs is a good idea. If he's got a lower back, and I'll tell you why, because when you stand up, you can flex and tighten your glutes to help stabilize the lower back, and you can't do that when you're sitting down. It's one of the things I don't like about the hammer, the typical hammer, because they have that seat on there.
That's what I was picturing.
And I had a client ask me the other day, he's like, what are these lower handles for? I'm like, oh, that's because when they made this piece of equipment 25 years ago, some dumbass thought it'd be a great idea to sit down and put these handles down here. Now, for the average person, that wouldn't be an issue, or may not be an issue. But you lose stability in the lower back if you're seated holding on to a lot of weight, because you're not able to contract and keep your glutes tight to help stabilize the lower back. So if he's already got an existing issue, and I only know this because I had such horrible back problem, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a great idea, and it turned out to not be a great idea. Yeah. So it didn't work for me. I don't know if it would work for him. Every back injury is different, but still.
It worked for me, but I think you're probably right. I think I'd go back to my number one. I was looking for additional stuff to add in, you know. My number one would be, you know, really see what you can get out of the least amount. We got some more stuff here we can power through.
And figure out what your lower back issue is. Don't try to train around it, with the exception of while you're trying to bring your back to a healthy stand, like a healthy position. I think a lot of people, they feel like they have lower back issues, and they're always going to have them. And you don't want to get into that mindset. You want to find out what's wrong, and you want to rehabilitate it and get your back back.
Fair enough. All right. How to go about rest when doing unilateral work, like one arm rows or split squats. Do one side, then rest the other. That would tax the latter side, wouldn't it? Maybe do one side, rest a bit, do the other, rest a bit, repeat. What do you guys think there?
I think it's a good question.
I'd like to. So do you guys train with partners? I know, Scott, you train at your house, and Skip, you train with the wife, or?
I train with my wife, and God love her. She's in the other room. She may hear me, but I don't consider her my training partner because she's not going to help me for shit. So I train by myself for all intents and purposes.
Well, I'm lucky because I usually have a stable of training partners to choose from, usually a lot younger than me that are on the way up and, you know, kind of push me. But anyway, so I find that, like, say you're doing rows, for instance, you know, once you get to like a certain weight and you're doing your all out, you know, heavy sets, I definitely want to do my one arm first, and then I'm going to let him go and do his arm while I'm breathing, because I want to get my breathing back down to where it was for that other side. So I'm giving it the same opportunity as I did. And, that's for, the Bulgarian split squats, or, one arm rows, or those are really the only two examples I can think of. If you ever tried to do like the Bulgarian split squat, drop set of death, go one leg right into the other, it's just not going to end pretty for
you're
you.
screwed.
You're not going to make it.
I agree.
You're not going to make it through that second. A lot of it because it's the oxygen debt more than anything. But yeah, I think it's good to, once you get to those heavy sets, you want to make sure you're giving both sides equal opportunity as much as possible to get the most out of each set. So
I don't disagree with that. I feel the same.
I will add a caveat though, because I'm actually experiencing this myself, where I have an issue with my right lat right now. It's a neck injury. I'm doing a lot of PT and stuff with it. And when I'm training by myself, I will actually go do my right arm and then go into my left arm at kind of a deficit in a sense on the rows, because I don't want this side to get too far ahead of my right injured side. So gotcha. I just kind of counteracted my first point there, but with a caveat of this side needs to come up. So I'm giving it the best opportunity, and I'm handicapping the other side a little bit so it doesn't get too far ahead of the other one. So.
Now, I don't let a training partner go, but only because I don't have one. But I do recommend, just like you're saying, there should be a little bit of you got to get a little bit of your breathing back, whether it be lunges or Bulgarian squats are a good example, because even though you're supposed to be using the front leg to do 95% of the work, the back leg is going to work. Sure. So if it's already fatigued, I mean, how are you possibly, especially if you're going to push as close to failure as you can, you're going to end up with, once. The other thing too that I think is important in a situation like this, when you're working one side over the other, is start with your weaker side.
I was just thinking
so that you don't start. Yeah, you start with your weaker side, because then at your strong side, you might, if you do happen to lose a rep or two, then it will at least balance out, but you still want to try to obviously train both sides equally, which is another reason that I don't like to do one side, all the reps on one side and then the other side. It's a me thing. I'm OCD, but I like to alternate left, right, left, right, left, right, that sort of thing. You can't do it on lunges. So you might be, well, Skip, what do you do? I do a sequence. I'll do the lower reps so that they're not as exhausting, but they'll be more like a 6 left, 6 right, without stopping, 6 left, or 5 left, 5 right, 4, and I do a 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where there's no rep. That way, by the time I'm to the end, both legs are so fucked that it doesn't matter, and one isn't benefiting any more than the other.
Yeah. Are you guys both right-handed?
Yeah. I'm actually ambidextrous, so I find my balance is actually pretty good with my strength on both sides. I can throw baseballs and footballs with both sides.
You're kidding? Were you like, when you were a kid, did you write with both hands?
No, but I can.
You can, but I'm saying,
and I can quite impressive.
Are you right-handed?
No, I wrote right-handed.
Okay.
I wrote right-handed.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Which foot, when you go to walk, which foot steps first? I'm just curious.
Wow, that's a tough one. I usually go I go with skateboards.
I'm more balanced on my left.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm to jump on a skateboard, I go with my left as well. Yeah.
So your left
too, in a sense.
Which your left foot kicks or your left foot stands on the skateboard, Skip?
I would kick either way. I don't have a preference, but if I had to jump on a skateboard.
Yeah. Which foot's on the board?
If I jump on a skateboard, I would lead with my left.
Okay.
Here's a better example. You're doing Bulgarian split squats. Which leg do you feel more in control with?
Yeah, see, I can't do that because they're both. I don't have.
Okay. So
I know that sounds fucked up, but I really don't. I'm almost as equal 50-50. If it's not, it's 49-51. I mean, I just don't have. If I have to pick a weaker side, development-wise, like visually, my right side isn't as pretty as my left. But strength, strength isn't gonna. I don't have a left or right. I know that's fucked up, but no, that's not to say that I didn't before. I had shoulder issues and shit like that early on, but. Oh shit.
Well, I'll give you an example. So my left leg is more coordinated. Like if I want to do like a single leg stiff legged deadlift, for example, just not that I do, but if I wanted to, I'm way more balanced. I can go up and down on that. My right one, I feel like I'm going to fall over if my right foot's on the ground. But my right leg is actually stronger than my left. Like if I was doing single leg presses, I can do more with my right leg. Oddly enough, my left leg is more developed. So figure that one out, right?
Just a random thing, random question I had. It got me thinking.
Yeah.
All right. We had one about putting the foam roller. I did a follow-up because I wasn't sure what he was talking about. Have you seen people using a foam roller under the shoulder pads to change the angle of the hack squat? I know Dusty does this. How does that work, and what are some other ways to change angles to isolate different parts of the quad?
I don't have any experience with this. If you guys do, you can, but I don't.
No, I do it. I do it myself quite often. It feels much more comfortable to me on my lower back, for one thing. I feel like I'm able to target my outer sweep a little bit more. I feel more in control when I do that, to tell you the truth, than when I'm flat back against the pad. Because I have a tendency being taller to try to just right underneath your shoulders. Okay, so like, okay, right. So you know, like the arms of the pad, you put the roller right here, and then you're laying against, so your upper traps are against the foam roller.
Back quite as far. You're kind of arch forward a little more. Yeah.
That's why I had
actually, that's how I hack squat.
Okay.
Damn, I thought I tried everything. I'll be goddamn.
You know what? I haven't used it either. I see people using it. I see Dusty using it. I haven't done it. But in terms of what?
I was going to say, in terms of other ways to like change angles, foot position, that kind of thing, and activation, you got to cut the weight on this one. But I really like going up on my toes on the hack squat, putting your feet as low as you possibly can, and letting your knees purposely go over your toes. Again, this isn't like, don't think you're going to, if you're a 6-plate hack squatter, you're not going to be doing 6 plates on this. Or if you do, you're stupid, because you're going to have some major, try 1 or 2 plates or something like that. And I think you're really going to get the teardrop really well. Especially if you really control your speed, don't bomb out in the bottom and explode up. Like, really take 3-second negatives and really stretch the tissue at the bottom and then contract hard on the way up. I think you're going to if your teardrops are weak, I think that's a great way to make them come up big time.
Wasn't that a Tom Platz Mountain Dog type of? I think Tom had John do that. I think, yeah.
I've seen Tom Platz do that before. I just realized something. I don't want to sidetrack us again after I said the left foot, right foot thing, but apparently I am. We talked this entire show about training so far, and that's what we're going to finish up talking about too. We talked about squat technique pretty in depth. Not once did we talk about depth. Just throwing it out there. I'm not saying we have to. I just thought that was interesting. I think you know what it was? I think we all kind of assumed between the three of us. I think that's really what it came down to. I think that was it.
Yep. I would love to comment on it though, because I can make it short and sweet, at least from my
have at it, man.
You want to get as low as you can before you have any type of pelvic tilt. If you have pelvic tilt, then you're putting your lower back in a vulnerable position. So you can, even though you can physically go lower, you shouldn't go lower. You should increase the flexibility of your hamstrings to be able to squat lower without your hips turning underneath you, or posterior is what's called posterior pelvic tilt. Otherwise, you want to squat, I think, as deep as you can. I think that you're fine if you're at parallel, and I've seen I'm going to be honest, I've seen a lot of really good bodybuilders develop, and this is within the last 5 to 7 years, develop insane legs, not squatting to parallel, and a lot of pros. And I mean, I see it I'll see one person every couple of days on Instagram that is very well developed and not squatting to parallel. So sometimes I wonder, I would like to think that it's the genetically gifted can get away with things like that. And you also have to understand what parallel means, because once the legs get so big, sometimes it can look like they're not as but you have to remember there's a bone in there somewhere that is 6 inches underneath all that
visible line.
And it might not have to go to parallel, because things like hamstrings and glutes kind of get in the way. They press against the calf, and you can't get all the way down there like you can when you're skinny. It was like that barbell curl example I was talking about earlier. But I do think that you should go as low as you can, but until you get to the point where it's called a butt wink, posterior pelvic tilt. And it may not injure you if you're young and made of rubber, but if you keep doing it years and years and over time, it's going to really wear on your lower back, and it ends up nasty.
I just thought of it because I was listening to Andrew talk, the question being, any other variations you can do to kind of manipulate the movement to get development in different areas of the leg. And I thought to myself, like, oh, I think the number one thing is depth. I know Kane, the guy who wrote this, he's local to me, and he's got great depth. He's got a really nice squat. I know his depth is good. But since Skip had a chance, Andrew, do you want to chime in on your thoughts about depth? Do you ass to grass, all of that?
I'm going to go back to what you first said leading into this topic of it was all just assumed that you're at least going to depth, and I think all of us can agree when we're watching someone squat right off the bat, we tell like, yep, that's depth, or he's leaving a little bit, that he could go a little bit deeper, or maybe he's just going too heavy, I say he is if it's just talking about guys, but so I think we all know a good squat when we see it, I feel like, I can watch my videos and be like, oh, okay, that's not going to win a powerlifting competition. Wouldn't be legal in a powerlifting competition, but I feel like that's parallel for me in the sense, and it's causing my legs to grow, I'm feeling it 2 days later, so.
Yeah. Skip, you got anything you want to add in on variations and stuff with leg training?
Man, I don't know. We covered a lot. I mean, I'm glad that you did touch on depth, because I did assume, I think we all just kind of assumed that was a given. I'll throw in one more thing. And this relates to any type of lower back vulnerability as well. I think it's difficult if you have any type of issue with your lower back, you need to use a little bit wider stance so that your midsection can kind of come down in between your knees, instead of using a narrow stance where you basically run the risk then of that pelvic tilt happening sooner. So I think if you have a lower back issue, or it's not too bad, but you can still squat, but you want to be safe with the movement, you need to open up your stance a little bit. I'm not talking about sumo or anything, but to go narrow on hack squats, like real narrow stance, or to try to squat with a narrow stance, or even leg press for that matter, and still go and get the depth that you want to get. I think it's an increased vulnerability. You got to be very careful with that, because those lower back issues, I'm telling you, man, they'll bring things to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And not only to a screeching halt, but they linger in your brain. What's that?
Yes. I was going to say, once you've had one bad one, you're just kind of waiting until the next one happens. Like before you get ready for those really heavy sets, it crosses your mind. Like there's a threshold that you pass that's your pre-injury. And then once you've had a bad one, you're living with that knowledge after that. Every time you go and do something heavy, whether it's a deadlift, a squat. And that's why eventually you get to a point where you're just like, you know what, it's not worth doing this exercise anymore, because every time I try to do it, I run into a little tweak in my back, and then I can't do this for 2 to 3 weeks, and then it throws this off. So I think that's why, as we get older, we kind of throw certain exercises out, or we find ways to make them harder without utilizing more weight to keep it in the arsenal. So yeah, I mean, and a lot of guys, like, you talk to them and like, they're just genetically lucky. They just, if they're in their late 30s and they haven't had a major back injury yet, and they're still squatting, they're very lucky, and I literally think it's just the luck of the draw, or maybe it's just it hasn't caught up to them yet,
Yeah. I think too, it's just kind of speaking generally about, when we're talking about like variations, Kane's question that he had, I think it just kind of something that crossed my mind is, for the vast majority of training, I think just keeping your feet in what feels like the most, like your standard stance, is going to do the majority of the work right there. Don't force your stance.
Yeah, it should be a natural stance.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, man. I think that altering and stuff, I mean, sure, you can do some little tweaks to it and stuff here and there, and like you said, Andrew, you bring the feet weight down but go really much lighter. That's not your meat and potatoes, though. Like, that's not the foundation. So it's like, these things are, and I think Kane gets that too, that these things are in addition. But I guess I just wanted to kind of make sure that I said it too, for maybe anybody who's listening to this or watching this that is pretty new.
Let me throw in one more thing, because there are gems all over the place. I'm sure that we can continue to throw in, but at the top of your squat, at the top of your leg press, at the top of your hack squat, no matter what the squat is you're doing, you should be able to hold a pencil long ways, lengthwise.
Wait, what?
Not this way. You should be able to hold it. I want to make sure no one misunderstands. You should be able to hold a pencil in the crack of your ass. Your glutes should be contracted at the top of any squat, they should be contracted. And if they're not, and you can't hold a pencil, like you can't think, like, would I be able to hold a pencil right now in the crack of my ass? Then you don't have enough glute activation. You're not contracting your glutes hard enough at the top. They're not doing enough work. And I think that's leg press. That's any type of squat. I mean, there may be something, one type of squat that I can't think of off the top of my head that somebody might say, well, it wouldn't be for this. Well, okay, you fucking win. But the large majority of them, you should be able to hold a pencil in the crack of your ass.
Take on
well, and if your glutes aren't activated at the top of that squat, what's connected to the glutes? Your lower back.
Right.
So you're opening yourself up to more injury that way. Exactly to tie in your point right there. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Well, listen, if guys are listening to this, you're listening on our new RSS feed, Think Big Bodybuilding Media. If you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate having you along. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do, because we've got a bunch more shows coming out here. I want to thank our sponsor, TrueNutrition.com. Now that I'm getting back into training, I'm looking forward to getting back on my Perry MD and everything else I use from them. They've got everything from sports supplements to high quality multivitamins, everything you can think of. Check them out. Use our code ADVICES. Check out Skip at teamskip.com. Andrew, do you have a website, or do you suggest people reach out to you? What's your site?
Instagram is fine. Bodyberry.com is my website, or just email. My email's right on my Instagram. So, but yeah, thank you.
Excellent. And you guys know how to reach me here at the channel, or feel free to drop me an email, mcnallydiets@gmail.com. Guys, this is a really nice pleasure. I've really enjoyed sitting here and just talking training with you guys for a while, especially considering I haven't been able to train hard. I'm glad to be kind of thinking about it again, and thank you guys for firing me up. I appreciate it.
Nope, same here. I want to get back to leg training myself, so talking about it gets me all excited. A couple more weeks, I should be able to get back to work, so we'll see.
Right on. Thanks, guys. And
Thank
everybody at the live feed, we appreciate you. And FYI, Andrew had a delay, so we appreciate you working with the delay, Andrew.
Thank you,
guys.